Okay, good afternoon, students. Today, as per our previous class information that we actually had as a part of our explanation as well as the teaching and learning, that we started understanding the concept of learning actually. What is learning? Okay, what are the definitions which are available for the concept of understanding learning? Later, we discussed about some sort of information pertaining to the concept of learning, like characteristics of learning. So today we shall see about the next elements of wherein we will try to understand some of the concepts like types of learning. Okay, so what are the types which are available for us to understand the concept of learning in a very detailed form? Yes, students. The types of learning are identified by some of the psychologists based on some of its nature, or you can say the characteristics of learning that we are supposed to talk about now. So the first type that is influencing on everyone's personality is none other than the motor learning. The first type of learning is motor learning. So what is the meaning of motor learning? So most of our activities, as you know, that some of the physical exercises, physical activities, maybe that I am right now in front of you, sitting, and I am taking an online class. Yeah, and if you are listening to me, some of you are listening to me by sitting, some of you are walking, some of you are sleeping, some of you are doing some activities. So those all activities which you do with the help of your physiological structure, usually they are to be known as uh, motor activities, or that form of learning is to be known in psychology as motor learning. So most of our activities in our day-to-day life, right from morning till late night, whatever we used to do, we are usually do those activities with the help of some of the influential factors which we are supposed to do. So the motor development or the motor activities are actually influencing those all activities so that we used to do them. The individual has to learn those all activities in order to maintain their regular life. Say for example, if I wish to walk from one place to another, if I wish to complete 1 kilometer walking, right now it is pandemic situation, we cannot move outside of the family or home, but still walking, running, skating, driving, and even climbing. So any activity that you need the support of some of the muscles, okay, the coordination of the muscular as well as the glandular elements. So those all elements required some of the efficiency, which is also a part of ability of learning. So all these activities like walking, running, skating, driving, climbing a mountain, these are all considered as the result of the coordination between your body and mind, between your body and you can say the coordination of the muscles. So if there is a coordination between these elements, then and there only you can learn something. If you wish to walk, though it looks like a physiological activity, but that thought should have to come to you, and you know how to walk. So if you talk about the childhood period, we were not familiar with how to walk. Okay, even we were not aware about how to run, but day by day we converted everything and we learned psychologically, and we applied that psychological thought physically so that we can run fastly. Okay, we can walk, we can do the skating, either it may be on any floors, you can say. If I am driving two-wheeler, if I am moving bicycle, if I am driving a car, so those are all the elements which I have learned psychologically, then I applied to the physiological condition. So this is the way how motor learning used to take place. Okay, so that is the first type of learning type which is supposed to be understood. Second type of learning is verbal learning. They are very clear, they are very simple. As per the terminology is considered, we are going to learn about those elements in a very sequential form. So the second one, as I told, it is the verbal learning. As the name itself indicates, it is a type of learning which usually involves the language what we speak, the communication devices what we usually use. So verbal, in the sense, it is not only related to a language. Definitely it is a language, but along with that, whatever the form of communication or devices we do use for our day-to-day activities, like sometimes using some signals, using some of the pictures, using some of the symbols, using some of the words, using some of the figures, using some sounds too. They are all considered as a part of verbal learning. So verbally, if we listen, if we verbal means not only in the form of words. Sometimes that form of communication used to take place by using some of the signals too. But still, we used to learn. Okay. Say for example, when online class is going on, if you have any question, you have an option of raising your hand. So if you click that option, that icon, the presenter will come to know about there are some issues that should have to be resolved immediately. Okay, so like that, if there are other options like, so by using that technique, you will try to give a message, or you would like to communicate without disturbing to the one who is actually presenting the screen, or who is presenting virtually. Okay, so these are some techniques which are usually learned by every one of us, and we used to communicate. So we used to use these elements for the purpose of communication. So those all comes under verbal learning. That is what they are to be symbolized sometimes with the help of some of the signals. Okay, when you meet or when you have been to different malls, cinema, theater, or big complexes, or colleges or schools, earlier there is an indication of the different floors and other things. There are some words. So everywhere the symbols or verbal communication will not take place. There may be the appearance of the signals, even in bus stop, okay, railway station, airport. You have some signals, you have some words, or you have some pictures. By looking at those pictures only, you will come to know, this is the dustbin. This is the, see, even in buses also, there are some symbols which are usually represented, like this seat is reserved for, earlier they used to write, this is reserved for handicapped, disables. This is meant for women. Now, based on some pictures only, we will come to know whether these seats are reserved for whom. So, like that, we can see the influence of the different elements of verbal type. So, verbally, by the help of words, by the help of signals, that is signs, by the help of some of the pictures too, we'll get some information. By the help of some of the symbols like a traffic signal. So based on the color of the signal, we used to move further. If there is a green signal, nobody will wait. If there is a red signal, everybody should have to wait. Okay, if there is a yellow signal, everybody should have to be ready for moving. So like that, based on symbolic representation, we used to learn. Okay, nobody will come and this is the red signal, everybody should have to wait. If there is a traffic police or inspector or anybody, or if there may be the mere appearance absence of anybody, but still we follow the regulations, isn't it? So use of mask. If through the help of words also I can communicate, or I can send you an emoji, or I can send you some picture also through the help of different media. So like that, we can use symbols, we can use pictures, we can use signs, we can use words, even we can use the figures, the ratio of the improvement of health practice in the different perspectives. Just don't play with your audio settings. Yes. So these are the tools which are used in such kind of activities. So we usually use some of the words, verbal words, for the purpose of communication. Right now, I am talking to you based on the language. This is also part of learning only. When I come to know, then and then only I have understood about the differences. Next, the third category, the third type of learning is concept learning. What is this? So it is the form of learning which usually requires higher order mental processes. Like sometimes we use thinking ability for taking some decision. Okay, we may use reasoning ability, which is right and which is wrong, reasoning out. Okay, intelligence also. So these three are supposed to be used for understanding some concept. So if we have a new concept in front of us, like what are the types of learning? So this is a new concept. Totally, I am talking about all the types of learning are to be considered as the concept. So for that, understanding all the types of learning, if that is to be considered as a concept, you will try to use your ability of thinking. How many types we have, how they are to be categorized. You will reason out, and you will use your intelligence for understanding the whole type or the other types of learning too. So we learn different concepts from childhood till the last day. Say for example, when we see a dog and attach the term dog, we learn that the word dog refers to a particular animal. So like that only we have learned right from our childhood period. A for apple, we used to say. We will show the picture, we will write A, P, P, L, E, and we were taught that A for apple, A for andre arasa, A andre ane. ಈ ರೀತಿ ನಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ ಒಂದು ವರ್ಡ್ ಸಿಂಬಾಲಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ರಿಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆ ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಕಲಿಸೋದ್ರ ಮೂಲಕ we have learned so many things. So concept learning usually involves two processes actually. One is the abstraction and the second one is generalization. Whatever the abstract information is there, it should have to be generalized so that the concept should be very clear. This learning is very, very useful for recognizing as well as identification of any things that is surrounded by every one of us. When we used to remember something, when we used to identify what type of these elements are, the categorization, the division, the classification, that is done based on if you know the concept clearly. So if you have two instruments with you, say for example, the softwares and hardwares, you can differentiate which are the softwares and which are the hardwares. Or if you were asked to name the input devices of computer and output device of computer, so you will say some of the names in input and some names in output device, because you know the concept of computer, you know the different types of computer. So whether mouse is an input device or not, okay, whether keypad is output device or not, okay, whether the softwares, whether they are input device or not, okay, printer is output device or input device. So you will tell them or you will give the information based on the type of concept learning you have. If you have understood the concept correctly by the ability of your thinking, by your ability of reasoning out, and by the ability of intelligence, then and there only you can explain the same with the others. Or else what happens, usually the problems used to take place. So somewhat concept learning is the third and very important type of learning, which also play an important role for us to understand the sequence of thought. And the fourth one is discrimination, differentiation, discriminate between the things. So this is a sort of learning which help us to discriminate between different things. So learning to differentiate between a stimuli and choosing an appropriate response to these stimuli is called as discrimination learning. Usually when we used to see different type of experiences, based on the experiences, when we are in a position to differentiate the past with the present, or present with the future, or past activities to the present activities. So somewhat there what we use is we try to use our experiences based on the available resources. Okay, so if based on that, if we can discriminate between any two or more objects, that type of learning is definitely called as discriminative learning or discrimination learning. Say for example, if you hear the sounds of the horns, so when you listen to the horn of any vehicle, you can say that by sitting in your own place, what are the what means for which vehicle that sound belongs to. Okay, we have the horn of bus, we have the horn of railway, even we may hear the sound of airport or aeroplane. Next we may hear the sound of trucks, lorries, okay, JCBs, or two-wheeler. Again in two-wheeler, whether it is Royal Enfield, whether it is Hero Honda, whether it is Suzuki, whether it is any other vehicle, or it may be the sound of car. Okay, it may be the sound of, right now I must not forget to say that ambulance. Now ambulance is the only powerful vehicle right now in India, which is moving anywhere, everywhere, because of the pandemic situation. So we can listen to the sounds and we can recognize, we can discriminate, this is the sound of ambulance, this is the sound of something else, like that. So that can be done over here under discrimination learning. Next is learning of principles. So through the help of some understanding some principles, we are going to learn something. That is also one of the important category or type of learning. So that is what the fifth type, learning of principles. What does it mean? So individuals used to learn certain principles related to science, mathematics, grammar, or any subjects. So in order to manage their work that was actually understood effectively, we should have to have this type of learning type. We must get the clear information about this type of learning. These principles always show the relationship between two or more concepts. When you have two or more concepts, there what happens is you will try to learn or you will try to remember that those type of principles along with this type of learning type. That is what learning with principles or learning of principles. Okay, you may remember some formulas, you may remember some of the rules, you may remember some of the regulations, you may remember some of the associations, sometimes even you may remember some of the correlations which are connected to some of the aspects of the areas. So in this way, each and every individual used to learn certain principles related to science, English, mathematics, grammar, or any subjects you can talk about. So through the help of principles learning, that is by understanding some of the regulations, rules, formulas, or association, correlation, we do remember some of the elements. So if we are remembering, if we are learning through the help of this technique, that type of learning is to be known as learning of principles. So most of the times the events of the history, who comes after whom, okay, chronological arrangement. In science, first law of Newton, second law of Newton, third law of Newton, okay. In mathematics, theorems, okay. What about what is actually the Pythagoras theorem is, okay. And if you wish to remember the periodical table, so the positions of those elements in different conditions, so those are all to be remembered, those are all to be learned based on what these kind of activities, like after understanding their principles, maybe by following our own methodology or technique, or the way how we try to remember some of the formulas and other things, we do remember some of the aspects of learning, you can say. That is the fifth one. Sixth one is about problem solving, which is again very very important for every one of us to remember. That is higher order learning process, it can be called as. So when we used to meet some of the problems, we used to get some of the solutions to the problems by solving it, isn't it? So this learning requires the use of cognitive abilities. If you wish to solve a problem that you are actually meeting right now or in your day-to-day life, what you require is, it is definitely required high mental order or higher order of abilities related to learning process, where each and every one of us used to think, reason out, observation, imagination. If I do this, what will happen? So through the help of imagination, we will think over the perspectives, the solutions, like that. We will even generalize the things. Okay. So ability of thinking should have to be used, reasoning ability, observation, imagination, taking right decision. Those all elements will be generalized in a sequential form as to get the solution. And we meet a problem in the sense, it is not only in a negative form. Say for example, when you have a particular task of completing within 30 minutes, if you are not in a position to complete that task for 30 minutes, but where you took 45 minutes, the same activity or task is to be given next time. So whatever the mistakes you did in the previous, these are to be analyzed so that you can overcome the problem. So whatever the problem we are surrounded by, those problems are to be usually identified by every one of us by only understanding the concept of this. Okay, like this. The second one is, the next one is attitude learning. Seventh one is attitude type of learning. What does it mean? So attitude, as you know, that it is the predisposition which determines and directs our behavior, which is we usually have in our personality. Sometimes directly or sometimes indirectly, it influences on every one of us. We develop different type of attitudes in our personality from our childhood. Even it will change, it may modify according to the phases of development is considered. How we were at childhood period, how we were at later childhood, how we were at adolescence, and how we are today, and how we will be in the future too. There are variations. So we do develop the ability of learning according to our attitudes. Attitudes will also develop according to the age, maturity, experiences, knowledge, everything, isn't it? So we may come across the different people right from childhood about the people. So we may have different type of attitudes since our childhood is considered. We have different attitude towards looking at different objects and everything we know. So earlier, say for example, if would have given an example of instrument or a ball in front of you, any ball, say for example, cricket ball. So for the lover of cricket, they may definitely think of using that ball to play. If the same ball is given to a very infant baby, that child will start playing with it, or it may the child may start the baby may start sucking the ball. Okay, or if it is given for other children, again they may start playing, or some people may use that ball to hit somebody. So it depends upon the attitude that we have developed. So even that will become a part of learning, I can say. So attitude learning. Uh, Everything, yes, our behavior may be sometimes positive and sometimes it may be the mixture of negative, or it may be both. So depending upon our attitude, we may think, see, the people are dying like anything right now, not only because of the pandemic situation or the disease they are affected by, but even by the frustration. If they have negative, you, I got corona so that I cannot recover, that element itself is creating a lot many nuisances in the country. So that what type of attitude we should develop towards anything. I am not saying that there should be a pure negligence towards the disease, but taking care of it and thinking in a very positive or a constructive form will definitely help us to overcome any type of problem. So developing very or a right type of attitude is the need of the hour, I can say. Okay, attitudes of the nurse towards their profession, towards the patients is very very important. If you start looking at the patients in a very healthy way, definitely there are very good chances. If you start neglecting them, if you start looking them in a very negative sense, then definitely there may be the very less chances for those patients to recover themselves. Okay, next is, okay, yes, these are the some factors that need to be studied under the types of learning, I can say.